Hello world, Jennifer here. Starting a new project can be very interesting. I've always kind of enjoyed starting projects. Sometimes finishing them, of course, has been a challenge, but you push your way through and get things done. A project that I've always been thinking about over many years is turning a lawn tractor into a fork truck. I've always found that trying to move stuff and pick stuff up and move stuff around has always been a challenge for me because some of the equipment that I do work with gets quite heavy at times because you got to think big. In thinking big, stuff gets heavy. So also spending a lot of years working in heavy industry, I've driven a lot of fork trucks. As soon as I got out of college and started working in heavy industry, one of the things was that to get some things done and move equipment, you needed a fork truck. So I learned how to drive a fork truck. So I've always kind of wanted my own. Out there I've looked at, I've driven both electric, propane, gasoline, diesel, just about any way you could power a fork truck. I've probably driven one that has been powered by whatever sort of fuel is out there. So in building my own, I didn't need anything that enormous, plus also smaller fork trucks are usually electric, which means you got to maintain this giant like 3,000 pound battery and stuff like that, need a charger. So even if you can pick up the fork truck pretty cheap, you end up spending the same amount of money, if not more, on a charger for it and everything else, and having to swap out batteries, and that's a real mess. And small propane ones are usually so beat up that nobody wants them, and they're all worn out, leaky, and don't run for nothing. So I thought, in looking at other YouTubers to have machine shops and do other work, that a fork truck about the size of your average lawn tractor would actually work out really good. I still plan on having it steer from the rear and everything as to have the big tires up toward the forks and the little tires in the back. So I would take a regular lawn tractor and essentially spin the seat around and make it drive backwards. What I have in front of me is a 5-gallon hydraulic tank. Since the fork trucks run on half hydraulics, I have realized I have enough parts to make my prototype with existing equipment that I have. There'll be some video to follow this about removing a 2-spool control valve from the old tractor Laverne and a hydraulic cylinder that I have set off to the side from the bucket loader that was part of Laverne. It's a 28-inch cylinder, so to start out with the prototype, even though it is a double action cylinder and a fork truck on the up and down on the forks only essentially needs a single action, my plan, of course, is just to have a drain that drains back to the reservoir on the retract side of the cylinder. The only thing I'm gonna have to probably go out and buy is a very small cylinder to tilt the forks, because not having the capability of tilting your forks up and down on your fork truck is just, you need to be able to do that to be able to move stuff around appropriately and get under things. The other thing is I was going to buy actual rated forks for the job so that I knew that my welding or whatever, however, I just wouldn't trust homemade forks, because I'm looking to have my lawn tractor fork truck max out probably at 2,500 pounds for a maximum lift capacity. If even that, probably somewhere between 1,800 and 2,000 would max out, because if you get out there and start working with larger things and you end up with a piece of machinery that you need to move or anything else that weighs 600-800 pounds or even close to 1,000 pounds, you need more than human power to lift that, and sometimes on a gravel driveway or on rough concrete and stuff like that, a gantry on steel wheels just is not something that works. The plan with this oil hydraulic reservoir in front of me, it's a 5-gallon steel reservoir right now, has has a vent cap on top, what most likely looks like a return port here because it's smaller. On this end we have a suction port. The tape is the cut line. I was going to turn this, I don't really think I need a 5-gallon reservoir, so I was going to cut it in half to make it into hopefully 2 3-gallon tanks, with adding a piece of sheet metal to make the end, and the piece of sheet metal I was have marked up so that I can bend it and essentially make an end cap that I will re-weld on. The original tank is made out of 2 pieces of steel, the bottom piece being a U that's been welded, and the top piece has your bolt flange, comes up over and back down to a bolt flange on the other side. So as you can see, I was going to take this piece of sheet metal, put it out in my brake, metal brake, and bend some flanges, weld up the seams. I've changed wire feed, the MIG machine, from 030 to 023 wire, so I can efficiently weld metal this thin. This is, I forget what the thickness of this thing is. It's probably 060 or 070 thick, whatever gauge that turns into. I'll put that in the comment section if I get my sheet metal chart out. A lot of the welding on this tank is not in the greatest of shape, but that can, the welding, I don't know if it kind of almost looks like it was done by human, not robot, because if I had a robot making welds like that, I'd throw the thing in the scrapyard or have the guy reprogram it, because it's just pretty, the welding can be, it's a little snotty in places, and I'm hoping that I can, by hand, do a much better job on the welds than what this tank originally from the manufacturer came from. So with that, I basically have a hydraulic system. All I need is hose, and that's usually a pretty good price, but we'd figure out how to get enough hose to get this job between the 2-spool controller, the tank, a pump. The pump I have is originally made for a log splitter, so it's a 2-stage. That should be pretty interesting, and just hopefully is the prototype, especially if the 2-stage pump gets into swapping over between volume and pressure. But hopefully we'll be able to get together about $100 and get just a straight high volume 3200 psi gear pump that we can drive off the lawn tractor engine. Alright, so what we're going to do is cut the tank in half today, set up the sheet metal, and see if I'll throw you in time lapse here to get the tank cut in half. The mice have lived in it for a little while, so this should be interesting, pulling the mouse nest out. Hopefully the tank is not too rusty inside, but if it is, that I think can be cleaned up pretty easy, since I'll have definite access to the inside of the tank with it cut in half. Get the sheet metal bent, and the next video will be welding it up.